You are now listening to the Noir Podcast. I'm your host, Chukwudi. With me is my co-host,
Chidi.
Today we have a special episode for you guys. We brought in one of our finance bros. Welcome to the pod, Felix.
Thank you very much, Chukwudi.
But we'll continue.
Thank you, Chidi. So I was asking you earlier.
Yeah.
I'm welcome to the Noah. Abi? It's
Noir.
Noir. Wait, how were you pronouncing it here?
I mean, hey, let me know.
I don't know why, like, why is it hard for guys to pronounce it? Like, I never had a problem with it. I don't know. No, speak your word. Is it like the Igbo tongue? Like?
Hey, I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
I should name drop now. I think we should try it.
Yeah, but actually, we need some Igbo guys to like, even Yoruba guys as well. We need to pronounce this people. But anyway,
I feel like we should start like a TikTok challenge. Like get Igbo guys to like start
Yeah.
pronouncing it on TikTok. But yeah, Felix. So, could you please tell the people what you do, what you're about?
Okay. So I'll start with my work. I'm very brief.
Yeah.
So I'm a financial analyst. I don't want to call the name of the company I'm working with in case I dip before this thing comes out. But yeah. Hopefully they don't see this, man, to be honest.
Oh my god!
Preempting his
My god!
So I'm a financial analyst. So I work in a very good company, credit rating agency, and then I've been there for about 2 years. I now have about 3 years experience in finance. So studied economics in PAU, and then I do a lot of sports, basketball, football, and on weekends I run a boys club that helps them with oral formation in the school with their families too. So that's pretty much it.
So, we brought you on because obviously, like, we feel like you have the expertise to analyze what is currently ongoing. As you and I both know, Nigeria has been going to shit for a minute.
Yeah.
Our economy has been fucking up. So, like, I see it as, like, sort of like two streams, right? So you have what's going on with the exchange rate, obviously, which kind of funnels into the other thing, which is what is also going on domestically in terms of, like, inflation, cost of living, all of that. So, and it also seems like, obviously, we've watched stuff like trickle, but it seemed like to be happening in bits and pieces. But within the last, I would say, year or so, like, it seems like everything sort of exploded.
Yeah.
So, for you, like, where do you feel, why that sudden, or maybe it wasn't sudden, maybe the signs were there, but, like, I guess maybe to us people not in the space, it happened kind of suddenly overnight. So why do you feel like that happened, and, like, what is the root cause, or what are the root causes?
Okay, I think I'll start from, like, what's happened most recently. First of all, I think there's panic in Nigeria. Panic and fear. But I'll start with saying that, first of all, to control any economy, right, there are two things that are involved. Monetary policy is like a tool to basically control the problems happening in an economy, right? And then on one hand, monetary policy, on the other hand, fiscal policy. So just for the sake of this show, so when we hear monetary policy, we just think about central bank. And then when we hear fiscal policy, you can think about the government.
Okay.
So before now, or like, let me just start from when the president came into power. Immediately he said, removal of fuel subsidy, unification of the exchange rates, meaning we just have one exchange rate. And obviously, I think that day, in fact, if you go to filling stations, the price went from, I think, 152 to, 400 or something. Or,
About 500
Yeah, 500 or something. Yeah. So now it's like 610, right? Yeah. So things changed immediately.
Very dramatically. Yeah.
Right. So that means everybody on the road dealing with fuel would increase their prices because they are buying 3 times. People going to work. Some people spend like 3K going to work now. And then cost of living means that, okay, what you want to go and buy in a shop now, obviously the price would increase, right? So that is it on one hand. But before I go in too deep, to solve like the problems, like you said earlier, inflation, exchange rate problems, we need to use basically these two tools, the monetary and the fiscal policy. Okay. So now, the monetary policy, meaning like the tools that the central bank uses to control the economy, like I said earlier. Right now, the two of them need to act hand in hand, right? Their rules or their policies cannot be opposing each other.
Okay.
So, but then now, if you look at Nigeria, if you go online, everybody is saying exchange rate, CBN, speaking about the central bank governor, what is it doing? And then most people are not really speaking about, maybe they are speaking about the government, but not in the same light or pressure they are putting on the central bank. So if you look at, for instance, the cumulative VEX, let's just say 100% VEX in the Nigerian economy, 80% of it, just my estimation, factual, is going to central bank. Why is central bank not doing this? Why is central bank not doing that? Right? And then maybe 20% is going to the government. So now there's an inflationary problem and there's also exchange rate problem. Okay. So just to explain how two of them go hand in hand and why is it a serious problem. So for you to have inflation, like we had in secondary school, persistent increase in the price level of goods. So things lose value over time. If domestically your prices of things are increasing and things are losing value domestically, inflation rate is increasing, your money is losing value domestically, it cannot appreciate magically in the international markets. Meaning that if it is losing value here, it's losing value abroad.
Okay.
And then there's what is called like a pass-through effect. I'm trying to bring it down to the barest minimum. There's like a pass-through effect, meaning that what is happening in inflation would also feed into the exchange rate problems. Okay. And what is happening in exchange rates problem there was going to trickle down into inflation. Now, if you look at it from the other perspective, the exchange rate issue, for instance, remember during election, there were a lot of
cash problem.
Yes, exactly. There was cash problem, and the politicians also, a lot of them were, will I say, sharing dollars. Let me put it that way. At least those were the speculations online. So you can think about the amount of dollars that they have in their control. Basically, that is a whole lot for somebody to be giving out to the next person $50,000. But before even going into that, so from the exchange rate perspective, if your currency is now losing value at the international markets, it means that people that, for instance, want to import things, they're importing at a more expensive value, which means that when they bring those things into here, it's now more expensive because they want to make money on what they have done or what they have bought, right? And they bring it back to the market. And in the market here, the normal person has now seen the price increase. So there's that, let's say, relationship between them. But then recently, a tool, also under monetary policy, a tool that the central bank is using is called interest rates, right? So interest rates is basically the cost of borrowing money. So for instance, now it has been increased to 22.75 by central bank for commercial bank. Sometimes banks go to borrow from the central bank, right? If the commercial bank goes to borrow from the central bank at 22%, for instance, if you and I go to borrow from the bank, they will charge us way more, right?
I think I read somewhere that like it's 40%.
So that was the cash reserve ratio.
Okay.
So that means, just to explain, that means out of all the money, let's use Access Bank now, for instance. If Access Bank has 100 billion, maybe people they have deposited money 100 billion into their accounts. So which means that Access Bank has 100 billion. That cash reserve ratio means that central bank is instructing them that if you have out of that 100 billion, 45% of it, come and keep it with us.
Okay.
So if they have 100 billion and they've kept 45% with central bank, it means that they have 55 billion left. So 55 billion left to give out as loans to people. So that was increased from 32.5 to 45%, which means that they won't give out loans as easily as before anymore, right? So that reduces the liquidity or the money in the system. And if there's no money in the system for people to do things, it sort of reduces the frequency of how they buy things, and hopefully it should slow down inflation. So that is what central bank is trying to do in that regard, right? Slow down or reduce the money in circulation, right? Control inflation. But imagine you're doing all these things to control the economy, and just to not to divert too much, these higher interest rates is sort of attracting foreign investors. So if they see that the rates are very good, somebody from outside sees 22%, monetary policy rate, they want to bring their money inside here, because if they invest here, they know that they're going to get a high return back, right? So it's attracting some of them to come. So you can see one central bank is trying to curb inflation and at the same time trying to attract foreign currency into the economy.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
So something you just said now was that basically the central bank with its policies is trying to sort of slow down the amount of money in circulation, right? But if these foreign investors are now bringing an influx of money again, doesn't that sort of compound the issue, because you sort of have a new injection of cash into the economy again?
Okay.
Aren't they bringing like
Forex, yeah. Forex, so I think is the foreign portfolio investment, right? They are bringing it to, for instance, invest in your financial markets or your stock markets. But in this case, the treasury bills or the what's called open market operations. So they are basically investing it in your country. So it's like an attractive foreign exchange that we are looking for here. So which should help, maybe for instance, clear out a backlog, right? So from what I'm saying, it has attracted some, and it's what I've been told, it has attracted some foreign currency into the country. But we're doing all these things to more or less stabilize the economy, right? But some people, you see, I think December or January, exchange rate reached like 1.9. And then you saw some people saying maybe the next day it moved to 1.8. Some people said, no, why did you move to 1.8? I bought it at 1.9 before. And then when it goes to maybe 1.9 something, they're going to sell straight, right? So there was a lot of panic buying because we just want to make money quickly. Imagine somebody that bought at 500, maybe 2022, for instance. That person will have cashed out by now. Do you get? So there's a panic buying, hoarding, people speculating, right? So central bank is trying to do all these things. But what I said earlier about people focusing on the fiscal side too, which is the government, is because you will do all these things, you're attracting foreign investments, people start coming in, but there's the problem of insecurity, for instance. You can give all the intervention funds to the farmers, but somebody comes and then the guy dies or something happens, basically, insecurity, armed robbery or anything. So what the government is meant to be handling to help the economy, it goes to waste, basically. So they have to work hand in hand, pretty much.
To touch on that point, I think the ease of doing business in Nigeria is another issue, because, okay, if you come to Nigeria now, you want to start business, and like there's so much red tape and bureaucracy you have to get through. You're not going to want to, like, doing business here won't be easy, and like when business is not easily done, it becomes harder, and when it becomes harder, people will leave. So cause you see, there's so many companies that have left, like, and now we're now hearing that Sure deodorants is now 5K.
Bro,
guy, like when I saw that here, I'm like,
guys, we smelling
I don't
on
blame
the road
you
now.
niggas that smell
bro. Like niggas are going to be smelling.
Hey,
bro.
God.
Like, imagine you just go and buy deodorant, you're spending like 10K on two.
Yeah,
like,
actually.
bro, come on, bro. That was
It's it's crazy. Even that thing you said of, like, see everything happening on the border, for instance. Now GSK, many of them have left the country, right? Because of, if you ask some of them, like the problems they encountered, apart from maybe competition, like one of them said, there's so many things that go on in the border. That one is not even CPM problem now, it's government. This is something I mean. An investor has come in now to help your economy. But then just to clear it good, I'll give you an example. The Uber Corolla now is like in Nigeria, apart from the exchange rate problem, or even before it started, because of the custom. For instance, 2005, that Uber Corolla now is like 7 million. Because I think in Nigeria, you're not allowed to import a car of that was made more than 15 years back.
2009.
Yeah, so now
you can't do
exactly
less than 2009.
But we're seeing those Corollas everywhere in Nigeria. So the car itself is like now maybe like 3.5 or 4 million. But to clear the car at the border is like extra 3.5 million. Do you get? So it's like you're paying twice for it. So that is just cash. So you can imagine every other thing, right? I mean, maybe that's a good policy. They shouldn't invest. They shouldn't bring in things that have been older than 15 years, for instance. But you think about the other goods that are being held back, that you have to settle somebody, you have to do this before. So all those things, will I say, will counteract whatever is happening from the central bank's perspective. That's what I think.
In terms of like, they're trying to stop limits importation here. So what's the like alternative for us to use in Nigeria, for example? Like, okay, like let's say like the whole car thing, for instance, like the whole 15-year thing. So what are we meant to be driving here? What's the alternative here? Is it like What's that? Is it innocent or something?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Even public officials are not using those cars.
Yeah.
So why would layman use those cars, kind of thing? So what's the production that's happening here that's going to? Because if you're like limiting importation, that means production has to be high here.
Yeah.
Production here is not high.
Yeah.
So there are two things like clashing to each other. It's not making sense.
Yeah.
So like I don't know how we're going to improve on that.
So I'll just say there was something I saw. Maybe it's a public source, so people can check it. It was on Business Day. So they were saying Nigeria does not have an import problem. And when I saw it, I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So I went to check. So what they were saying, they tried to compare how much Nigeria is importing compared to what many other countries were importing. And actually were far off. The article was saying the problem, just like Chidi said, is production problem. People don't have an issue when you're importing a whole lot, but really you can ask yourself, what are we really importing? Are we importing inputs or raw materials that we can use here, for instance? You get. So if you're doing that, you're exporting more for what people in international markets want to buy. So right now, I think a lot has to go into in-house production. I don't know how visible it is, but it usually has to start from the top to the bottom. Because if you see maybe the high-end people, for instance, maybe politicians buying Inosin, for instance, it will raise the price of Inosin, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, to signal something that, if the politicians are interested in doing this, maybe it's something that people can start adopting over time. It's just probably Inosin that is here that I know of quite right now. So I think it starts from them, actually. This takes me to what I was saying, or looking back, actually. I think 2021 or 2020, when the naira was devalued. So just to give perspective, for you to devalue your naira means that you want to, just like the name implies, you're reducing the value of your currency, right? So when you reduce the value of your currency, people abroad, for instance, can buy your stuff at a cheaper rate, right? Your currency has lost value. So they did that basically to attract people to come and buy Nigeria's products, for instance. So when you do that, the ideal thing is that those come and say, this product is cheaper now in Nigeria. My $1 can buy 2 of this thing compared to 1 in Ghana, for instance. But then they did that, and then nothing happened. So the idea is that when you do that, when people now start coming to buy from you, eventually after some time you start gaining value. But they did that, and there was nothing to sell.
The lag was crazy.
And I think they did it 3 times that year, and then you can also see that there's like
Just
a gap, serious gap.
But I think, okay, so what particularly interests me with the whole foreign exchange thing, right, is I remember 16 when we went. I think for the most part, from like maybe when I was born to like around at 20, like when we left secondary, naira to dollar was like in and around, let's say like 200, 300 around that time. And then from when I left, I remember the first time it jumped to like 400 and something, and people were like,
what's going on?
What's going on, all of that. As of last year, before changeover, I believe dollar was like 700 and something, or 800.
Yeah, at the parallel markets.
Yeah, about 800. So, and that's from 2016. So it went from 400 to about 800 in the space of 7 years, give or take. How has it doubled so quickly? Like what? Like you mentioned the whole thing about like, last year when there was cash problems, you have politicians with their dollars and all of that. But from what I understand about those transactions, right, it's always behind doors. So it's never really like documented.
Yeah, right.
So technically it should, if that is the root cause, because most of that money is unaccounted for on paper, it shouldn't have that effect. It does. So how like even with the whole devaluing 2020 2021, like it rose, but like, do you get what I mean? It sort of doubled in the last 9-10 months.
Okay, so what I'll say now is that first of all, Nigeria.
Sorry to cut you off. As of recording, as of yesterday, dollar was 1.6, I think.
1.612 or so.
Yeah.
So what I'll say is that first of all, I think everybody knows this, that how Nigeria depends on oil rights for the revenue. So that's does a lot for the economy. So before the recession in 2016, there was, like say, an oil boom prior to that. So there was a lot of dollars coming into Nigeria, right? And we were operating like a fixed exchange rate system. But I'll say, yeah, maybe semi-fixed, to put it that way. So what it means is that you're not allowing the power of demand and supply dictate what the rate will be.
Okay.
So for instance, this person wants to buy at this rate, these other people want to buy at this rate. If everybody comes together and all that, what will be the rate? That's basically what it means, right? But central bank was operating like a fixed exchange rate. So what does that mean exactly? It means that the money coming in from oil, for instance, we keep it in the external reserves.
Okay.
So it's just there in dollars. So if we see that the rate is about to fall less than our target of maybe 400 naira to $1, we'll pump more into the economy to basically make sure it's at that rate, right? If you see that something is changing, we'll take out again. So we're managing it. So it was like that for a while. But what happened is that the second recession in the last 10 years, which was during COVID, oil production sort of stopped. So what happened is that the revenue or the dollars that were coming in from oil stopped also. So it reduced. So that affected. So if you are in the government or central bank and you see your reserves stopping or you see your reserves depleting, for instance, you can't have zero external reserves there because that affects a whole lot of things. You start saying, oh, what can I do in this particular case because this is going to affect. So this is what when Tinubu came in, when he said unification of exchange rates, no more fixed exchange rate, let it be in the market, right? Government does not have money to be doing fixed, right? So that was what led to it. So I'll say the first thing is that the oil production or our sale of oil reduced drastically. And the thing of oil is really serious because there's one of my colleagues that was doing research on the whole oil and gas sector. And he said if I got him correctly, in a 52 kilometer stretch, there were 92 points or 91 points that people had done bunkery, basically. So imagine a 50 kilometer stretch with like 90 places that the whole pipe has been breached.
That's like
people
twice.
are taking
That's
oil.
like 2 every kilometer.
Do you get? So by the time it's getting to the final user,
You
it's just
basically
like
have
10% that person is getting. So you have lost money like mad.
Yeah.
So we're no longer getting so much from that, right? So that has affected our external reserves. So I'll say that is mostly the problem. And what I'll say is that the main thing is not necessarily that our exchange rate is at 1.9 or 1.6. The most important thing is like we hear exchange rate stability is for the exchange rate to be stable. If the exchange rate goes to 2,000 now, and it stays at 2,000 from now till 2025. That is going to attract a lot of people. Why? Because you know that, okay, if I want to go for my master's next year, it's 2,000 naira to $1 or use. I can plan effectively. But if it's fluctuating like it's doing now, it affects so many things.
But you can plan
So
with it. I also wanted to ask, because basically, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of what the government has told us is the reason why things are the way they are right now is because there isn't really a lot of money to do things.
Yeah.
So when they removed subsidy, for example, now it was because they could no longer afford it as such. I want to ask, not necessarily for you to explain all of that, but like what your personal
I think
take.
Why aren't these two subsidizing it though?
yeah, exactly.
They are, but like not to the degree.
So I agree with that. It's not to the degree of when it was maybe 152, for instance.
You guys remember when 4 was like 65 now?
Yeah, 65. And there was even protest when it was 65. We're still really young. So, first thing I'll say is that, like Chidi said, they haven't removed it completely. Because if they remove it completely, it's going to be way more than
1K?
Yeah, maybe even more than that,
1K,
actually.
more
Do you
than
get?
1K,
So, it will be way more than that.
You thought it would be 1K by now.
Yeah.
Because you know there was that scare, I think last
Yeah,
year.
because when it jumped up to like 500 last year, everybody literally was like, man.
So what I'll say is that, first of all, for the subsidy, it was being financed with a lot of borrowing, right, from abroad or from maybe local and international sources. So you are borrowing to subsidize, right? So they were like basically say, we can't do this anymore because maybe the interest you're going to pay back on those loans was a lot. So you know what? Let's remove it. Because IMF also said, oh, you guys should remove this. Your subsidy is like a pathway for corruption. Personally, I would I'll say that I'm in support of it, but
in support of the removal.
yes, but
Okay.
my point is, if you are taking out that money, you say everything was on borrowing. I don't know how true that is, but the money you are using for the subsidy, put it in the right channel. For instance, hospitality or I say
Tourism.
hospitality, hospitals,
Yeah.
maybe tourism, which falls under hospitality, but
Yeah.
hospitals themselves or education.
Yeah.
For instance, in 2018, the budget for education was less than 10%. I'm not really checked exactly what it is now. So put it in the right institutions. But if you know you're not ready for that, just leave it where it is. Because people see subsidy as, oh, government is doing all these things, but at least let me benefit. The one I'm benefiting from, let me just stay how it is, or just leave it how it is. If you remove this thing now, I may not feel it in another way, so just leave it how it is. But I have a problem with even partial removal. Because like we said, planning, you remove this small, you went to 460 something, you moved it again, 568, now it's 610. It was 605 last month, now it's 610, at least in Lekki here, it's 610. So it doesn't allow planning. So if you want to remove it, but let's see where money is going to go to effectively. So that's just my point.
Even some places, even 700. So
700.
I heard that in Korea 700. Like, I just think from what you said, like, there wasn't like a plan, a proper plan. Like when they removed it, like there wasn't a place. Okay, let's see where this money is actually.
Let's see
going.
what
The
happens.
thing that, like you were saying, it was like, oh, they're subsidizing and like I think who was it? I think Nkonjo Iweala said it like a long time ago when she was crying about removal of subsidy. She was saying that like some people, the money is only going to like some select few people, like, and that's what they are trying to like remove. But it's like they've done that, but we are still
Feeling it.
it still. So it's like, where's this money that you're saving going to? And we are not seeing it. And it's like, just to go back on something you also said before, like, to fix this issue, some people have been saying diversify the economy. Like, how do you think that's going to help? And like, how do you think we can achieve that?
Okay, so there's something in my, I think the head of research where I work usually corrects us in the office. He says, oh, Felix, that stop saying the economy is not diversified. I was like, why now? But it's not diversified. So he now explained to me that said, oh, that in Nigeria, for instance, we have over 40-something industries. So the economy is diversified. But the problem, or what he thinks I'm trying to say, is that is the export that is not diversified. So I was like, whoa, basically, right? So he was saying, we have a diversified economy. There's entertainment industry, cement industry, you can name it, right? So but our problem is that what we're exporting is concentrated maybe in oil. For instance, which is what needs to be diversified. So we're very right about saying that. Why? Because there are a whole lot of things that happen in terms of production here in Nigeria. I think when I went somewhere, right, it was another country, they were very obsessed with Ankara, right? Material, even the senator wear, for instance. Something as small as that can attract, maybe not so significant compared to maybe agriculture, for instance, but something as small as that can be a way to
make some income.
Yeah, make some income. If you check how much people that probably export cocoa, for instance, or seeds, that can be like a skill or something that we can use to basically better diversify our exports. So apart from the oil, I'll say there's agriculture, there's even the entertainment industry. I think they start paying tax. Quite honestly, I don't know how much tax these guys are paying, but that's what I think. So at least revenue to come for.
Pay tax at this point. So do you think they're making enough to pay tax?
Some of them are making bar, man.
Because I was talking to someone here, because Mavins, they just sold I think a percentage of their company.
Stake,
I don't know what company it was, Atlantic, I can't remember, for 200M.
Yeah.
And someone was saying, like, if you think about how many people are on Mavins here, 200M is a lot, so. But if you think about,
you
like,
now pay everybody.
You know, like, it's just like 200M is a small amount. If you think about how much money they've probably made over the years and how much they are worth.
Yeah.
So it's like the entertainment industry, if that's the biggest label in Nigeria making that much, is there that much money to be made? Because if you look at all these artists now, like, most of them make their money from like touring and everything. So how much money can you really make from entertainment right now?
Okay, I think I get your point. And it's not as structured as maybe the other industries. For you can say, okay, this is who I want to tax. So maybe that is very valid. But I'm sure for a company like, I'll give it to them. For instance, a company like Mavis, if you go to their office, I'm not doing PR for anybody, but if you go to the office, they do nice accounting, all their books, everything is in place. So I'm sure a company like that pays. You get. Or maybe I'm even looking at it from the individuals. But really not to even digress too much. But the exports, my point is, there are so many things we can really do to really help the economy. And I would say this has to do with things of the institutions. So for instance, the ministries, maybe something like immigration or customs, are they facilitating these exports? Because I know people do things in the country, for instance. But before they export, for instance, how much do they have to, let me not say bribe, but how much do they have to settle guys at the border, for instance? If I'm settling guys, maybe 80% of the money I'm meant to get from this export, why should I go and continue? You get, what kind of go and do something else? So, and I'll say something else you said earlier, in terms of transparency. Let us know where the money is going in, for instance. So I think when you announce that fuel subsidy removal, the next month, I think you said the National Bureau of Statistics said the inflation rate was 24 point something. I can't really remember the exact figure. People came online and said it is not possible. How can inflation only grow by 0.8% when they remove fuel? Fuel tripled, right? So which means that what people are buying probably tripled too. And they are coming to come and say inflation only increased by 0.8. And the next day, they now came and said, that the fuel subsidy removal was not taken into effect and unification. And that was since then. They have not come and say, this is what the new thing is. So I think even this 29.9% of inflation, I think, is a far cry from what
that's
the
what I was
reality
about to
is.
say. Because this morning I was listening to the news, right, and they were speaking about like the whole NIHP, like Binance, all of that, and they said inflation. I think I might be wrong, but they said I heard 30-something%. And I don't know about, like, I feel like inflation is one of those things you can like, as a common person, you can sort of tell when somebody is like lying. Because you can go to the market today and buy something. By next week, it's almost doubled.
Right. You're saying next week. Probably that night.
Guy, that night.
That night.
I don't want to chow now. I told them, bro, I bought this in 1K. You guys said, guys, it's 1-1 now. Tomorrow, if you call me to be 1-2. I don't say, what's going on?
One of my friends said that this economy is not you want for delayed gratification. You can't do that in this economy.
It's now.
You have to buy now, bro.
I was on TikTok, man. They were like, guy, it's not a generation's turn to be like uncles. You don't see 10 naira biscuit again.
Like, guy, Chickwiz is 2.5, by the way.
Oh my god.
Chickwiz is 2.5.
Yeah.
Where are we going as an economy, bro?
Guys,
I used to say, like, Chicken Republic was for poor niggas. But now, bro, like, we can't even, like, bro, you can't even, Jesus Christ. Like, what are we doing, bro? Like, what's going on?
2.5.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask something based on what you said your boss said. So, you said that it's not that the economy isn't diversified, it's that our exportation isn't diversified. But we have all these industries, right? But if most of them don't really cater enough to local demand, even though they exist, and I guess technically that is diversification, is it not useless diversification if you're not catering to your local populace, at least to a substantial
level, before you can even think of exporting, right? So I'll say that's where, I don't know, where the real problem is. Because imagine somebody trying to, let's take for instance, somebody on the road. Maybe if you see houses that you're building, the woman comes and then she brings her food down from her head. She serves it there for the bricklayer to come and take their rice before they start work and everything. So let's imagine she used to make 1 bag of rice for the whole week, right? But because of the cost of rice, for instance, she can no longer buy that full bag of rice. She buys maybe the 3/4 size, right? Which means that if she's buying that, she can't feed everybody she used to feed before. Which means that she can't even meet the demand there. So it's something as small as that, or somebody on that small scale is being affected by what is going on in the economy in terms of increasing the costs of things. The person on even a larger scale, let's imagine Nigerian breweries, for instance, they can't even meet the demand of people that are here now, even though that has dropped because people don't even want to buy beer again. We were speaking about beer before. Chidi was asking me, how many times do I take beer? So I take beer because there's no buy again, man. Imagine you're drinking beer like 3 times a week. if you go to some restaurants now, like it's 3K, 4K, 5K.
Yeah.
So the person on the street that wants to drink his Heineken, for instance, they release a report that people don't want to buy Goldberg again because Goldberg maybe is like a cheaper alternative to some of the high-end brands that people don't even buy that again. So everybody's really affected. So what to say is that, one, if the environment is favorable, like ease of doing business, like Chidi said earlier, it's going to help local production. When we have met this, then we can now start thinking of meeting the demands outside.
You go first.
Okay. To touch on the exportation thing, like you said, catering for, we can't even cater for what we have. I also think there's a lack of competition in all these industries. I think that's another issue because if you look at all these industries, there's usually just one person or one company that is controlling everything. So and that also affects the price of things as well. Because you have multiple people that you can buy from. No one is going to hike the price that high. So it's like, I also feel like that's an issue where it's like, I don't want to call out names, but we know the monopolies we have in Nigeria. And like, I feel like that's a negative in the grand scheme of things, even if it's a positive for some people. In the grand scheme of things, I think it's a negative for the economy.
It doesn't actually bring about innovation. If I'm the only one, why do I have to improve? For instance? So I really get your point.
Bro.
But I wanted to ask, like, because you started off this episode by saying basically there are two things that affect your economic situation: your fiscal policy, your monetary policy, right? And you also said that, okay, the exchange rates, what the real issue is for you isn't the price of it, but the fact that it fluctuates so unpredictably. Let me put it like that. So for you, I think the question I want to ask is, with all the problems we've discussed about so far, in addressing things, what would you say the first step should be?
I would say the first step is, first of all, to check what the problem is, which is what takes me back to the central bank governor. Right. So the first thing he did, which I agree with, was to check what is the problem here when he took over. So there's something called the MPC, Monetary Policy Committee meeting. So you're meant to have it, I think, every 2 months, right? So he didn't have it for like 6 months or so since they came into office. The first one was last month. So what was he doing? They were having investigations to see what is causing this exchange rate problem. So they went to ask the lawyer to basically conduct the study, and they found out that some of those backlogs of FX, for instance, they were fictitious. They were by some companies that did not even exist. People were just trying to siphon money, right? So the first thing I would say is to look back and check what is the problem, what is going on here. Because if you don't know what has happened in the past, you can't tell what to, or you can't handle the future very well. So that is the first thing I would say. And then secondly, just to say that for them to focus on price stability. So normally we are taught that the first focus of the central bank and the central bank governor is to focus on price stability. Don't even think of growth here. Growth, it can be secondary. Why? Because if prices are not stable,
you can't grow.
You can't grow. You're not planning. If I give somebody a salary now of 50K a month, 50K today is very different from 50K in December, sef. So imagine somebody that was maybe a fixed rate earner. Maybe 2 years ago he was earning 50K. That person is losing money. Why? Because of, for instance, high price instability, inflation. But think about it. When we invest in some of these, let me not mention the name, but some of these investment companies, for instance, and they tell you that, you're getting, by the end of the year, you should have 14% return, right? Everybody's happy. But in the real sense, you have lost money because the inflation rate is what, 24%. So if it's 24, for instance, now it's 29.9. If it's 24%, for instance, it means that your money actually
10%
dropped by 10%. Do you get? So people are already losing money. Why? Because the prices are unstable, right? So I would say the first thing is for them to focus on price stability. Price stability locally. When you are seeing that your price is stable here, people can plan. Then growth now comes later on, right? Things now start becoming more attractive, even for people here who don't want to pay school fees, in normal lay person, people don't want to plan his transports.
But with what you said earlier, right, in terms of how the central bank is sort of like in addressing the price stability issue that the CBN is trying to sort of reduce the amount of money in circulation,
Yeah.
right? But in a country like Nigeria, where you have so many rich people, where money is like concentrated, and then you now have you have the few rich, and then you have the so many poor.
Yeah.
If you're reducing the money in circulation, aren't you just doing more damage to the poor people in that regards? And if that's the case, like, especially where we are the poverty capital of the world, as of whenever I know the stats back then was however percentage of people in Nigeria living on less than $1 a day.
Yeah.
So if you reduce the amount of money in circulation, aren't you just making life, which is already hard for them now, harder?
Okay, so there was something, I think the Minister of Finance, I think Wale Edun has said it, the President too has said it, Central Bank Governor too has said it, that there may be some pain or suffering now before it comes, right? So what I think it means is that, for instance, in economics, even theoretically and practically, you can't expand the economy and contract it at the same time. So think about it like a balloon, for instance, that you're blowing. So the balloon is decreasing, but if you keep on doing that, it's going to burst.
At some point.
So that air you're blowing in is like increasing prices. So what the central bank is trying to do, let's reduce the amount of air that is inside. Let's curb inflation. Let's bring that balloon to the adequate size. To even a lesser size, then we can start growing it the way we want. So right now, people are definitely going to be definitely going to suffer. But then hopefully, the policies they are putting in would have a better effect. So right now, it's a contractionary monetary policy they're using, trying to contract the economy. Eventually, it's going to open up back again. So that is the hope. So hopefully we don't go too deep and takes us time to come out again. So I'll just say pretty much. So suffer now. Hopefully things get better.
And then the other thing following from that is because I know central banks usually have like target inflation rates.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier like ours currently, not the target, but as of the statistic, it is I think like 29%.
29.9, yeah. As of, I think January,
As of January. Even though I think I said earlier that today they were saying it's like 30-something%, if I remember right. What is Nigeria's target inflation rate? And then following from that as well, it's like, I was like talking to you off camera saying that like, I feel a lot of people, how do I put it? Like us common people, like, we're very quick to, I don't know, like insult and, judge the people making these policies and all of that, right? Rightfully so, because we are the ones, I guess, feeling the
heat,
backlash of it. But at the same time, like, I'm always thinking, like, with the way everything is fucked right now, right?
Yeah.
And how, for example, now, I would like to think people there, not maybe everybody, but a good number of the people, at least, like, as educated as you, let me put it to the baseline in terms of knowing their finance and the economics and all of that. So do you feel like there is something in play that we aren't definitely privy to that's also like affecting all of this? Because you're speaking based on what you know, what we the general public are privy to. Do you, maybe this is me being a bit speculative, but do you think there's something else at play? And if so, do you have an idea or some ideas of what that might be as well?
Okay. So I'll start with the first question. So the target inflation, at least from what we've seen from the budget that was just passed, is 21.4%. And then now, like you said, also, 29.9%. Food inflation is about 35.4%. And that is what is the main driver.
I think that's the inflation I heard.
So that is the main driver of inflation, right? So hopefully we're able to go down or less than that 29.9%. But then to go on to the next part, I think the people there, for instance, central bank again, they have knowledgeable people, but there are problems. So one, for instance, he said when the central bank governor went to Arise TV to speak with his spokesperson, or they came to speak with him, he was saying that the bank is too full. We have to move some people to some places, and then people said if they are moving them, they will resign from central bank, right? And he was saying that why? Because let some people move to, for instance, Lagos, Marina, for instance, where they have an office there. Let some people move, and some people said if they're going to move, they are going to resign. So one is that some people there may not be as qualified as we expect. Why? Because maybe it can be nepotism, for instance, right? And then secondly, thankfully, I was able to meet the central bank governor of Kenya, the one that left, I think, 2 years ago or last year. And he was trying to explain to me the amount of politics that goes on in central bank. So if politics is going on there in Kenya, for instance, Nigeria, in my opinion, is probably like times 3. So when we hear regularly, office politics, every organization has it, right? So, and maybe even an organization with 10 people has it. So imagine the central bank of Nigeria, the number of people there. There's definitely going to be politics. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to control the economy, and then you're also navigating politics. Because, for instance, it is impossible for everybody there in the central bank to be happy that it was Cardoso that was appointed. There's a people that will tell you, I was here before him, things like that. And they will want to stifle what the work is doing, what the work is doing, basically, right? And it's not only, sometimes you may take it for granted that it's everybody there that wants the economy to move forward. If the economy moves forward, for instance, there's a people that will worse off there.
Winners and losers.
Do you get? So it's not everybody at the central bank there that cares about people here in the grassroots, for instance. So there are people there that will stifle what you're doing. Do you get? So you're trying to balance your relationship with people. So I just think that, and some of them have interest in some things that may not be so legitimate or maybe unhealthy for the economy. And some of them may be at the helm of the activities, right? So you're balancing all this. So I think that may be a huge problem there, which affects, which will affect the way things go around there, basically.
Well, it's only to your point. I was talking to someone like 2 weeks ago, and we were saying, like, on your point is like Nigeria, like, the reason why things are not going well is because people are gaining from the way the economy is. There's a few people, but they are powerful enough to keep it that way. And like the more they gain, the more they don't want the system to change. Especially even in the civil service, like that passport thing now that you can do it online. So many people were angry. Civil servants were angry because it's taking them money that
was a bag.
That was a bag.
That was a bag.
Imagine if the economy was okay and working properly, many people will lose bags. Or many important people shall lose bags, and they don't want that to happen. So the more it's like this, the better it is for them. So I just feel like that's another factor that's hindering us from moving forward. And also, I wanted to also ask you about the fact that there's no longer a middle class in Nigeria. And how do you think that has also affected us, and how do we bring that back? Because it's like someone tweeted it, I think it was yesterday, I saw the tweet, and they're saying that 800k or something, if you're any 800k in Nigeria, was that classified as middle class or something like that? I can't remember. And guys were arguing.
Damn near a million.
Guys were arguing about it, and like, so in your opinion, what do you think is the issue?
First off, I think that may be partly right. So I'll give an example. So for instance, let's imagine somebody got a job in 2022 now, and then let's imagine January 2022, and we're paying that person 200k, right? And the person worked, and then 2024 January, that's exactly 2 years, they promoted the person to what, 400k. So on paper,
you're richer.
That person is getting 400k. But I think that 400k now maybe even be less than 200k.
Exactly.
So let's imagine that person, for instance, was the middle class. What he can buy now
is way less.
Yes, do you get? Exactly. So the purchasing power of that middle class is dwindling fast. So, but if there's no middle class again, the middle class is basically the new lower or low class. So what happens to the people that were in low class before?
They're lower now.
Exactly, it's way lower. So I think it's partly true, actually. People have, like, say, are suffering. Let me just put it that way. So I think I agree with that. But to say, okay, to put a specific figure, 800k, personally, man, personally now, man, 800k. I saw something else. Before I even get to 800k part, somebody tweeted yesterday also that if you're earning 800k, is it in Rivers or Calabar?
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be playing golf.
Guy, I can't lie.
You get?
I can't lie. If there's a way I feel like what people need to start doing, especially as, like, how do I put it? Obviously, now that COVID's gone, right? People are going into the office, but there are some people that like. There are some companies that offer hybrid, obviously. Can you imagine if like you could get Lagos money but live like somewhere remote where you could just like cash out as a king, man?
I won't take it.
Really?
That place
Your guys are following you as well, Lou.
but my guys are not following me, bro.
Not the same.
It's not the same,
Not
bro.
the same,
That
man.
money that you're going to spend, you're not going to enjoy it the same way you enjoy it in Lagos or maybe even ABG.
Guy,
Yeah.
I don't know how to put 800k is money, like.
But even in Lagos here,
yeah,
Lagos,
it's money. Don't get me wrong. Like
Lagos.
it's
yes,
money.
GD.
It's money, bro. It's money.
Okay.
I also think it depends on what your expenses are.
But you
Because
cut your clothes according
if
to your
you're
size.
no, if
No,
you're
cut your
paying,
clothes.
if let's say now you're
You have
paying
family and
rent,
kids, man. You have
Yeah.
family, man.
kids as well.
Okay.
You are also, let's say you have a car, right?
Okay. No. See, you know what to do? Let's put an age to the person earning the 800.
All right.
That gives perspective.
I feel like-
let's say-
Because it's 22-year-old, anyone,
Yeah,
800K is his parents' house.
it's 800k for like a 22-year-old is
His
calm.
parents' house.
But I
You
feel
guys
like
are spending
if you're like mid-30s, it's really
Okay, so
not-
let's use age and circumstance. Maybe like family, marriage.
Yeah.
You can analyze that.
yeah.
Okay, if we are saying a 20-year-old, 800. But the thing is, I think I was telling Chuku this thing. The more money you make, your lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
So the 800k might sound crazy, but if you actually now deeply like the money we're spending when you're making 500k or 300k, it's not the money you're spending. It's not the same things you're spending on when you have 800k, because you want your lifestyle to change.
Yeah.
Let's say like, okay, I don't know what guys spend money. What do guys even spend money? Well, let's say for a babe now, a babe is easier. Let's say you were not doing your lashes before. Whenever any 800k,
Wig.
exactly the wig
Wig.
that you wanted to buy is different now. Do you get
Wig.
it? So that money in retrospect doesn't seem as large as it is now.
But, you know-
so.
But
I don't know,
you know,
it's
you know
tricky.
what they like with some financial advisors. Yeah, they say that's the reason why people always like sort of like get fucked, because you can put more money in people's hands, but the issue is rather than keeping. So how do I put it? Let's say now I'm earning 200k, right? Point is, even though that money is not as much, I found a way to survive up to this point. The issue now becomes when I now get to like 800k, rather than keeping my spending as what it was prior, and then sort of like giving myself, like a better terminology, room for growth, right? I'm now increasing my spending as well.
But
That
some-
is why like you always find
some people
yourself.
argue that. So what's the point of not getting the extra 600k? If I'm still going to be
It
spending
depends.
the same way I was
It
spending
depends. It
200.
depends on how you're wired. With some people, it's getting that 800k is a gateway towards something more long term. Some people are more into their short term gratification. So it really depends on the kind of person you are. I don't think there is necessarily a right or wrong per se, because at the end of the day, you can die tomorrow, man. Nobody's going to give you an award for like, okay, you saved or you invested however much when you're dead, if that makes sense. But at the same time, like, it's how do I put it? Like, your spending habits, even though your money increases, is usually what will lead you back to that point of complaining, I am broke.
But the thing is, the way I look at the 800k now, if you look at 800k, how much is that in dollars now?
And divided by, let's just say 1.6. No, don't look at it like that. It's
No, exactly. That's the issue now, because many people now, you see many families now, or many men, you talk to them, most of them, their families are probably in Canada or America. So the money they're making here, they're changing it.
Yeah.
So it's like that 800k that you probably think is crazy.
Yeah.
Is no longer.
Like I said,
anything.
it's depending on your circumstance.
But looking at an average Nigerian.
Yeah, if you're.
An average Nigerian
But an average
doesn't
Nigerian.
earn 800k.
I'm saying if you give them that money.
Okay, that
But
money,
would you also say the average Nigerian has a child abroad?
No.
That's exactly so.
No,
that isn't
far from it.
That's not something you consider in that sense. If you're talking about the average Nigerian,
Guy, people are poor, man. Some people that they have not seen 800k in their life,
You know.
Yeah.
No
and they
more.
will never see.
yeah,
So it's crazy, yo. So that thing of middle class, I don't know. I think is the purchasing power is dwindling. To be honest, people don't have as much.
Man.
And even what we were saying about the government, people that are complaining, people are doing this in customs, immigration, or anything. If you put guys there, they will probably do the same thing.
Exactly.
And I said people don't have an
complains,
issue
so they have the
what's
point,
happening in Nigeria is wrong. Sometimes they have the issue is
that
that
it's
they're not
not me.
benefiting
It's
from
not
them. It's not
me.
them.
It's
So
not me.
my opinion, that's a
Yeah.
big problem, man.
Fair enough.
Look.
I feel like because we have soon start rounding off, but there are two things like I was hoping you could touch on before
Yeah.
we ended. One is like, it was last year now, towards the end of last year, they threw our former CBN governor behind bars.
Hey.
Could you like yarn what went on there? And then you and I were speaking about this earlier, the whole like Binance thing that's been going on for the last couple of days. And it goes back to the whole exchange rate thing. Basically, the government is saying that it's Binance's fault that the exchange rate is so unstable because they are causing speculation with the naira, because people are using naira to buy Bitcoin, and like there's a lot of speculation that goes on there. Blah blah blah. What are your thoughts on that? But also, like, let's start with what I asked initially.
So, first off, okay, maybe since he's no longer in power, I can speak. So, I had a problem with the former CBN governor because, like I said earlier, your focus as a central bank governor, your primary focus is price stability. It is unheard of that a central bank governor will say that, for instance, he wants to help the president maybe solve poverty. That is very good, right? But that is not your job. Ensure that prices are stable first, then we can start thinking about growth and all those things. Secondly, I'm more serious that he said he wants to run for president. that is very, very absurd.
Guy, he had bosses with his face on you, bro.
Like
Bosses, bro. He was ready.
it is unfathomable, quite honestly. To think about. So those were the two issues I really had with him, and I felt like once you do that, you have basically watered down your power. Let me just put it that way. So I had serious issues with him, right? So, and then I also think that there was a lot of fraud that went on. So there were speculations that he was saying external reserves about something billion, but then the actual reserve was like 4 billion. So what was happening? Or that he gave, there was something on newsnow.uk that during his administration or when he was in power, or when he was the governor of central bank, that he gave money or jobs to his relative or different things. So there was just a lot of controversies, right? And if there's controversy at the head, and the most important person in central bank, you can think about what is really happening at the lower levels, right? So it trickles down. So even the thing of Binance too, and then the problem takes me back to the problem of maybe a Bookie FX, for instance, right? So I'll try to look at it.
Why do they hate crypto so much, man? Why does the government hate crypto so much? Like,
because anything you can't really regulate can be annoying for them, right?
So what you can't control.
Exactly, what you can't control. So the first thing I'll say is, so for instance, at Bookie FX, they were looking at this that, a Bookie FX is that what they will do, they will go and sell, and they will come and publish a rate, and they're not going to get the money back in return. That the ones doing this, doing that, spoiling the exchange rates. So I think that was false, but looking at it from their own perspective, I don't know. The same way people are saying that naira rates on Twitter, that is what is causing it. It may be, it may not be. So so it may be, it may not be. But these rates are gotten also from Bureau de Change holders who have licenses from central bank. Some of them have licenses to sell. So to touch on that, and then the Binance one, I think the Binance one, they're just probably looking for a scapegoat. Right, so they're probably charging them, I think, was it $10 billion? That's like 1.3 trillion naira, if I'm correct. So that is a whole lot of money. Who is going to pay that kind of money? No company is paying that, at least in Nigeria. And many of them are going. So I just believe it's a platform for people to, like, say, handle their businesses, right? And I think they've been as transparent as before or as ever. They have had issues in places, right? But this may be they are more serious. I may be wrong. So I'll have to do more research on that actually and see. But I don't think it's very, very unfair or unjust to come and say, Binance, you're the one causing the issue, man. You guys should leave the country. I don't think it's the case. You're not the only country that has Binance running there, man.
Yeah, because from what I heard, right, to sort of like pacify the government, Binance isn't allowing naira be traded on its platform anymore. But then, like, you also can't access Binance in Nigeria anymore. So, like, let's say you were holding foreign currency, for example, you also can't, unless you have like, don't use VPNs, but unless you have a VPN.
Nigerians will use VPNs. That's
standard
the truth,
now,
to be honest.
But they stopped the naira thing after the
imprisoned because they're trying to negotiate with them now to free the guys. So, like,
Do you know what $10 billion, bro? 10 billion.
Yeah, I'm paying that shit, man.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Do you know when I heard that P, what I was even thinking about was like, part of me is like, they're just trying to find a way to like get quick money.
Exactly. If that 10 billion should enter Nigeria, bro. The amount of problems you solve.
How do they calculate that 10
Guy,
you guys have money. Let's put it there, man.
these guys?
Like literally, they just look at the money that passes through and it's like, what's a figure?
But I know if we get that 10 bill, we're not
Guy.
seeing that.
We're coming out of the trenches. So come out a little.
I don't think
At
so.
least
I don't think so.
$10 billion.
I'm telling you, they're splitting that thing with 5 guys. They were not seeing that 10 bill. I promise you. G.
10 billion, bro.
Yeah, you know what 10 billion?
I'm telling you, yeah.
Okay.
Like, you are saying 10 bill.
I'm not resign tomorrow. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that 10 bill, it sounds crazy to us, but to some guys, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You guess.
Guy,
they're sharing that
do you
bill,
know,
bro.
this thing reminds
I
me of that
promise
clip of that senator that says some of you received, was it 500 million?
Yeah, exactly.
Guy.
No, so is it Ningi also?
Ningi, yes.
Guy. Fuck.
Hi.
Fucking hell.
Like, none of
man.
those guys are seeing, man. The generations are not seeing that thing.
In
Yeah.
their lifetime. Kai.
Yeah, my thing, just to end this on this P, man. Like, corruption is a crazy topic because I did like an essay on this.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think my conclusion is corruption is always going to be alive.
thing, yeah.
We can't kill it. It's going to be there.
I agree.
But my thing is, I think there's a smart way of doing things. If they give you a budget of, okay, let's say they give, what's that company that constructs on the road? Is it high tech or something like that? They give them they give them a contract of like 5 billion naira, for example, to do the roads. Why can't you spend 3 billion or even say 4 billion on it? And I'll share the
It's
1 billion.
greed.
Why are you spending 4 billion? Or let's say you're even spending like 4.5 billion.
Yeah.
And actually spending that 500 M.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't we do it like in a proper
Because
manner?
it's greed.
Like, why
it's
can't
greed.
we just
Like-
do properly? I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
in a better
I
way.
don't know how to
Like,
put this
in,
right.
it, in a way that makes sense.
I don't know how to put this because like corruption isn't something that is particular to Nigeria. Corruption
Yeah,
is all
everywhere.
over the world.
Everywhere.
But what I've noticed with places all over the world, like embezzle your money, great, cool. But people, at least outside Niger, tend to think more about like their legacy in society. So I spell like, okay, yeah, I'm taking this money, but like when I'm done, what will people say about me? In Niger, that's not really the case. Like Nigeria, it just seems like everybody, let me not say everybody, but like a good number of people involved, literally their mindset is your kids can't eat legacy. Like that is it. So like in their head, it's like, why would I even like 5 billion? Y'all are lucky I'm spending 500 M. That's literally it.
Bro.
Like, it's so crazy.
What
man.
I'll say here is that,
Yeah.
like you said, like Randy said, every economy has corruption. US, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like you said, take the money, but make sure this work is perfect, man.
Yes.
That's
Bro,
my thing.
people know that there's corruption.
Yup.
But at least just do the work. Finish the road. You get finish the road. Let's finish it. We know you embezzled,
Yeah.
but
Bruh.
just finish it. Let's go to work.
God, I'm so angry.
You get just finish it
Just finish
and
it,
embezzle
bro.
your money. Like,
Guy, finish
guy,
it.
if your project is $5 billion, if you take 1% of that
God.
money, your life has changed. Just use the remaining 4.7 billion to finish the road.
Oh,
Nah,
they don't think like this, man.
Yeah, shit.
What are you doing with 5 bill?
Guy, shit is fucked,
What are
man.
you doing with 5 bill?
So that's justice,
Right,
man. That's what I
it's,
think.
it's
Yeah.
painful, man. It's
Nah,
painful.
man. Felix, it's been a pleasure having you on the pod, man.
bad, man.
We've learned so much. I feel like
Yeah,
we've also been
educational.
able to like bounce so many like ideas off you.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's crazy.
I was waiting for how long? You know, nah, man.
Oh, man.
But yeah, you guys don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, don't forget, with the weeks coming, we've launched the Noir Challenge, where 3 episodes from now we'll be picking a winner, and we look forward to that. Also, I'm sure you guys are wondering why. I don't know why you two are dressed in black and white, but I'm dressed like this because I'm coming straight from law school to record.
You guys
all
looking
of
for
this.
excuse, so they don't drag you.
Bro, know. I did like a thing before I came here, so I had to wear like
Yeah,
corporate kind
fair
of stuff.
enough.
I was about to say the reason, but once you now nab me, so I won't say the reason. I just plan the outfit, so yeah, pretty much.
But you have anything to plug before you go?
So I'll just say we run OGG Sports. I'll say that again.
Yeah.
Chidi, Chukudi, Muna, Rotimi, Samuel
Samuel.
Dega, and myself. So I run it again this year. So I think you guys should pull up. People came last year, but we have it here again this year.
This December.
And then pray for it to be successful.
Yeah.
In the year basically. So thanks a lot.
Well, yeah. Can't wait to have you back, man. I feel like you're going to be one of our regulars.
I
Like,
look forward to it, man.
Yeah,
Hopefully, people will start listening to finance podcasts, man.
Yeah,
To be
man.
honest, or economy, to be
Yeah.
honest. Because there are so many podcasts. That's why I thank you guys for this, man.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
yeah, I'm a huge fan. So, just
Yeah.
perspective, I've known them since 2010 minimum.
Guy.
So I will not give context too much. but yeah, so it's been a
Guy.
pleasure seeing this.
Nah, but yeah, man.
OG, man.
Obviously, like everything we've said, if like for some people that maybe they are into the economics, maybe if by the time everything comes out, it's not tallying up. We are recording this about a month and a half in advance. So if anything has changed, we are speaking as things are now.
Now.
So yeah, thank you. I'll see you next time.